start now. Hi, everyone. Welcome to our third meetup for Digital Charlotte. I'm very excited. High tech than we have been in the past, if you've come to the past. So we're very excited to see what it will look like as the end result. So first of all, I want to say thank you to everyone for coming out. It's really nice out, which is a departure from last week. So I'm glad you guys were able to come out and make it here tonight. I'll first introduce myself. My name is Andrew Au. I am the Director of Community Programs at the Queen's Knight School of Communication, and I'm also your host for this evening. I want to take a quick second to acknowledge our venue host for the evening, Johnson C. Smith University, and also the Metropolitan College for working with us to secure this venue tonight. Thank you for letting us use the space. So I'd like to tell you a little bit about Digital Charlotte first before we move on to the meat of our event. At Digital Charlotte, our mission is to support partner organizations by helping them grow their capacity to work toward digital equity. Hosting these meetups allows us to bring together the Charlotte digital inclusion and tech community, and for those to grow their networks, connections, and professional development. Digital Charlotte was started as a project at the Knight School at Queen's University of Charlotte in 2012, and if you'd like more information, please visit our website, digitalcharlotte.org. Digital Charlotte is and has always been a collaborative project focusing on promoting digital inclusion advocacy and training with direction and support by the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Digital Inclusion Steering Team. So with that said, let's turn to our guests. We have James Walker, the CEO and founder of Informative Technologies. Will Ward, Enterprise Development for E2D, Eliminate the Digital Divide. Jill Bierce, Executive Director and Co-Captain for Code for Charlotte. And Michael Abensauer, Executive Director of Kramden Institute. So if you guys can give them applause. Great. I'll give you guys a softball for this first question. If you could just quickly introduce yourself, your organization, and your role. And then if you can continue on, how does your organization work towards digital inclusion?
Thank you very much. So I'm James Walker. I'm the founder and CEO of Informative Technologies. I also partnered with All Green Recycling, which is a zero landfill recycler here. So what we do is we focus on systemically ending the cycle of e-waste and the digital divide by helping make solutions for a circular economy. What that looks like is open source software running on anything from IP phones that come in to laptops to tablets, and getting that to those who are trying to make hardware available to those who are behind the digital divide. So we're not necessarily a refurbisher, but what we do is train and create research and development for alternatives to proprietary software to help refurbishing become easier. We also bring in students from some of the most challenged schools in the system, train them on how to become technologists, building their first computer, and then supporting those computers in their community as they become better at it, so that the answers about how to check email and what's a spammy email and how to set up a network is done by somebody who lives in your apartment complex and who's been trained on doing that. And so we go after grant opportunities for STEM education and STEM diversity to help expand that in our region. Thanks.
Good evening, all. Again, I'm Will Ward with E2D. My primary focus with E2D is to build the enterprise of our organization. That consists of developing new corporate and community partnerships. Our focus is simple. We want to eliminate the digital divide here in Mecklenburg County and throughout the state. We do that through three primary ways. One, providing affordable laptops, hardware, connectivity, in addition to, it's 6 o'clock. Then it's come back to me. And the final piece is providing digital literacy, basic digital literacy training. So that's, again, affordable laptops, connectivity, and digital literacy training.
Hey everybody, I am Jill Bierce, And first, I want to congratulate Andrew for saying all of our names correctly. He was very nervous about that. He did well. So I'm the co-founder and executive director of Code for Charlotte. What that is we are a civic tech organization. We use education, technology, and advocacy to promote civic engagement, open government, open source, all of those fun open things. As far as digital inclusion goes, what we do twice a year, we are currently in a laptop drive. We spend a lot of our time opening up government access to programs and resources, but without putting devices in the hands of the people who need those resources, we're not doing any good. So what we've done is we have a twice a year laptop drive where we collect laptops, and then James does all of the refurbishing, which is one of my favorite parts, to be honest. All Green Recycling is matching all of the donations, and then we use the library's digital literacy program to distribute them to those in need. So that's kind of what we do as far as in Digital Divide.
My name is Michael Abensauer. I'm the executive director for Kramden Institute. Kramden Institute's been around since 2003. Our mission is pretty simple. We're a nonprofit, and our mission is to end the digital divide by providing technology, tools, and training. And that's a mission statement we revised only a couple of years ago. It used to be more focused on just student access, but we realized as we started doing this work a little deeper in the communities we work with that a lot of people, not just students, need access to tools and training and everything else, connectivity as well. We do two kind of, I'd say, program areas. The first one's hardware. All our hardware programs are basically taking in donated computers, desktops, laptops, whatever we can get our hands on, refurbishing them in-house through volunteer and staff, and then awarding them, typically, computers free to students in grades 3 to 12 who don't have a computer at home, as well as providing low-cost computers to members of the community who don't have access. So that's the hardware side of it. And to give you an idea, we do about 4,000 computers, give or take, annually every year, and get those computers out into the community. The other part of it is the training side, and that's something that's relatively new for us. We've only been in training for about 2 years now, but it's everything from basic digital literacy training, so teaching folks how do you turn on a computer, say hello to Mr. Mouse, what's an operating system, how can you go from one operating system to another, because at any one time we're all interacting with several. Kind of getting the same basic precepts of safety, how do you get on internet safely, how do you share, how do you create on the internet. We're big fans and proponents of creating your own product and material and not just being consumers of everything that's being slung at us. So that's a way we encourage students from low-income schools and communities to kind of really get more engaged on it. In that time, we've done almost about 1,500 people have gone through our programs in the last couple of years. We do basic digital literacy programs in public housing. We do them in communities that ask us to come in there. There's one model we really like where we bring people to Kramden, train them on how to do digital literacy, and then send them back out into their communities with computers so that they can actually do this continuously. So it's something we're trying to end. Like everybody here, how do we end the digital divide? And everybody talks about a three-legged digital inclusion stool, which is devices, connectivity, and training, kind of enveloped through this fuzzy aura of relevance. How is this relevant to my life? So we're tackling on 2 out of the 3 stools, legs of the stool. Connectivity for us is, like I'm sure everybody here knows, it's an issue. It's how do you convince the ISPs to give everybody low cost broadband, and that's always something we've struggled with. And I hope this tonight is kind of one of those things where we can kind of preach towards that point and hopefully get some public pressure on folks to make that more affordable.
Awesome. This next question is a little bit of two-parter, so that's why that was first one was a softball. What is the general process for when someone donates a device, a desktop or a laptop, to your organization? And then after that, after you refurbish or repurpose or whatever you do with the devices, how do you distribute those devices?
All right, thank you. So in this case, this is where the all green side comes in. So as one of 2 zero landfill recyclers, corporations look for that, and so they get thousands of pounds of equipment in their doors through trucks from here to Boston and here to Atlanta. And they now split what will happen to that into one of two options. It can be reused, and that's where Informative comes in to figure out, based on our models, using data, which of these systems are usable again, which systems have support in the open source community, and what options are there for new firmware or open source operating systems for them, so that I can now create a finished good for them and train people to do that. If it fails those tests, then it is treated as a source of renewable resources, which means that every aspect of it is extracted, including its lead and its mercury content, and separated out. And there is somebody in an industrial world who needs that as a resource. And when you look at how much ore it takes to build the earth to get enough petroleum for plastic or enough aluminum for a framework for a computer, it's much more preferable to keep that outside, keep that a circular loop, so that another computer manufacturer buys recycled aluminum and then it continues from there instead of redigging. So those are the ways that technology is handled in our organizations.
Okay, just to briefly describe the process at E2D, we truly believe in our partners. We truly believe in this community, and so we partner with various corporations to receive their decommissioned laptops, and then in return we take those laptops and we actually we re-image and refurbish those devices. We have about 7 high school students that we hire part-time and train them on how to re-image and refurbish those devices. We partner with the Charlotte-Mecklenburg school system, and that's how we're able to identify the various communities and schools and students to provide those devices to, in addition to various community-trusted partnered organizations.
So I think you'll hear the running theme through all of this is community. We all work within our own partners, and they're super overlapping, which is awesome. So when you donate a laptop to Code for Charlotte's laptop drive, it comes in through me or us, and then it's housed until James is ready for it, mostly. And then it goes over to Informative Technologies, where the high school interns work on refurbishing it, loading Revive OS on it, cleaning it, making sure everything is working and up to date. Then it comes back to me until there's another digital literacy class through the library. And at the end of that class, we show up, and as the last day, we give those laptops away. So it's kind of our process. Because refurbishing is not our strong suit, it's important for us to use partners, because teaching digital literacy would be a whole different wheelhouse for us to start in, which is not efficient. We use the library's digital literacy class. So I think it's really important to talk about how important our partners are, because when we work together, we get to move this needle so much stronger.
It's not rocket science. We beg for stuff. We get in laptops, desktops, tablets, phones, weird stuff. I love pawing through it. It's a bad idea. But I was talking with James earlier, we get about, on average, 2 pallets a week coming in through the front door just from individual donations. People walk in, we say, hey, we'll take your computer from you. If they have any questions about security, we'll show them how we wipe the hard drive and everything else we do in a secure facility. If they have time, we'll take them on a tour of the facility. People love that. They're like, wow, it's a lot of computers. We tell them, yeah, but we need more. Bring them all. We get donations from, like everybody else here, individuals, corporations, municipalities. I would like to make a big plug, and this is probably something I'm going to approach everybody here on the table from. The biggest issue for any computer refurbisher, period, right now in North Carolina, anybody who does this at scale, is getting state surplus material. Right now, if a laptop is in a university or any sort of state entity, we do not have access to those. They're state property. And as such, when they're done, they can either go back into another state agency, or they have to go to the state surplus property agency, where who knows what happens to them. Typically, they get bid on for the lowest penny on the dollar, then they disappear in some guy's truck, and I've seen the truck. Some guy will literally come up with a pickup truck and grab these things. So that's our big push this year, is to try to change the state statute to make it so that nonprofit refurbishers, like everybody here, has access to these computers, because it makes more sense to reuse them, to give them a second extended life and put them back in the community. To get an idea, probably about 30, maybe a little less, more % of all the computers that come in can actually be reused that we see. We have what was called a cut line. You know, what's the minimum specs we can use on our computers to give out to our partner folks and our student recipients? And we get a lot of stuff that's just old or broken, or we cannot touch it, so it has to get recycled. And we work with recyclers to make sure our downstream is certified and everything else. In terms of getting computers out, we have a lot of different programs, actually. The biggest one is Kramden Tech Scholars. That's the one I had mentioned earlier for students in grades 3 to 12. If they don't have a computer or access to a working home computer, all a teacher has to do is nominate them, and they can get a computer from us free of charge. And they get basically free lifetime tech support for as long as they're enrolled in school. We do it at the school, so a school will call us up and say, hey, we have 40, 60 kids that need a computer. We'll show up with a truck, a couple staff folks, and we'll give out the computers. Or they come to Kramden. We do it once a month. We open the doors, and they can come and get computers as well. But we have a couple different channels, and then we work with other community organizations, other nonprofits who can submit their clientele for computers. So there's a whole range of stuff. But really, the takeaway is, bring us your old stuff, we'll take it, and then help us lobby the General Assembly so we can change the statute to make sure that state surplus stuff can come back to us.
Have you thought about following the truck?
I don't want to follow that truck.
Oh, man. I think that might be a good idea.
My next question to everyone, besides the state surplus, what are some other hurdles or obstacles that you face in your organization? Is it lack of donations, lack of manpower, distribution, anything like that?
I think that people have to think about e-waste differently. So I have a little bucket of things that are unopened smartphones, unopened Galaxy tabs and things like that from stores that close, that don't sell, and eventually are just kind of swept up and they're thrown away. That stuff is considered to be e-waste to somebody. If they understood that technology could be used as a renewable resource, it could create jobs, it can train students, it can help power these great nonprofits here, then it's almost like looking at it as a piece of gold, and then you throw it away because you're not using that lump of gold. There's a whole economy for that, and that would help, I think, all of us with our fundraising, because we intersect so many ways. If there was more interest in giving, that would be the biggest thing.
Yes, James, I think that's well said. I think for us, obviously just awareness that this divide even exists. I think that there are so many individuals that just don't realize that there's such a big need. And the more organizations, the more corporations that know that their devices have more life, I think that we will be able to truly make a dent in this divide, at least here in Mecklenburg County. And so that has been one of our biggest challenges, is, again, just providing awareness and letting corporations know that there's extra life to their devices.
I would agree with the hearts and minds kind of thing, that having people think differently, but then also for us, finding the right messaging for how we securely take them, how we wipe them, and make sure that the data that you left on there isn't going to be used by somebody else is important. But for Code for Charlotte specifically, it's probably space. It's figuring out where to house them until they're ready, until they're ready to be refurbished, or where to house them until they're ready to be distributed. That kind of things, I think, has been one of our struggles.
Donations are always welcome, right? More computer donations. I always say it's grist for the mill. The more you get, the better and bigger the mill can be. It's really just, like everybody here said, convincing a lot of these corporate sector folks, yes, this is an issue. Digital inclusion is real. It's a challenge. The digital divide is real. It's a challenge. And they kind of look at you askance at first, and you're like, you know what, take your phone away for a week and see how you feel, right? They'll start panicking, the blood will drain from their face, and they'll be like, oh, start making weird noises. But no, I mean, it is a huge challenge, right? It's telling people that, look, it might not be seen as a basic necessity like food and shelter, but you can't apply for a job with a paper resume anymore. You can't get job skills online. You can't get job skills offline. You can, but it's hard. But think of everything that computer represents in terms of a tool for your better academics, better success for your career. Just connections, staying in touch. We had a meeting earlier today with a group that works with refugees, and one of the things they said, which kind of stuck with me, is they really need computers so that they can Skype back with their families back home. And I was like, you know what? Yeah, of course. Why should that be a right exclusively reserved to the folks who can afford a computer? And it's a basic need the way I see it. It might not be as sexy as food and shelter, but it is a basic need. So kind of increasing awareness of the challenge, I think, is on everybody's mind. And second, more computers. Totally. Lots.
Do you have any examples of how the technology that you guys are providing has fostered any social change to the recipients through your organization?
Sure. So I'm actually the chair now of Vance High School's Academy of Engineering Advisory Board, which was formerly run by Electrolux. They have provided us probably about 30 students alone in the last school year who almost none of them had turned a screwdriver on a machine before. They're smart kids, but they would not have ever said, yeah, I'm a technologist, I'm a geek, I'm a hacker, I'm a nerd, all these kind of subcultures that we kind of put as a cloud. That's really irrelevant if you're an urban kid. Like, there's no role model, there's nobody, uncle that works in tech, none of that. And when we do things, we have them take apart a computer and rebuild it about 2 times. And by that second time, they can identify everything in terms of what the components are on their own with no note-taking. And they realize that they remember it, what RAM is, what storage is. Most of these kids, surprisingly to us techies, don't know the difference between storage, memory. Forget the jargon. Like, just storage and memory alone. Anytime you use that, you realize, wow, that was jargon to them. Now they understand it. Then we have them install an operating system and code on it. And then they go home and they tell their parents, I made Pong. And it's like, you did what? And they come back and it's like, my parents think I can fix computers now. How do I fix computers? So now they want to learn more after a day experience. And that's, I think, the biggest thing. I have thousands of hours of those experiences. I'd love to learn how to partner with the other organizations that are in the schools to say, how do we put together a master plan to turn that light bulb on a lot of kids? I think that'll change what we talk about, especially, it's obviously personal to me, is diversity in the IT industry. Like, Facebook had, I think, 81 minority employees out of over 5,500 the last time they reported. And they said there's no pipeline. You can make $1 billion, on Facebook. You could figure out how to make a pipeline. So I think it's a matter of finding new ways to make technology relevant. And you know what makes that possible? It's e-waste. Because if they mess up on that laptop, it's not a $700 mistake. It's scrap, okay, we'll get another one, it's fine, but learn how to do it so you take away that nervousness as well around technology.
And in terms of the question was, what have we seen that's provided the most social change? So hopefully our executive director, Pat Millen, doesn't slap my hand when I say this, but we are excited to announce our West Charlotte Academy, which will begin the end of this first quarter, where we're actually going to take our model of having 12 high school students, E2D kids, and train them on how to reimage and how to refurbish the devices that we get. And so the great thing about this is that these aren't students that are just volunteering their time. We're actually giving them a skill, and they're actually getting. The idea is to empower these students with skills that they can take beyond the classroom, and so that they can actually impact their own communities. And so, as we know here in Charlotte, there are so many emergent industries in the tech space. FinTech to be one of the bigger ones that's really beginning to explode. And so what we're doing at E2D is for the jobs that are going to be entering the market very soon. And so I think that's probably one of the key things that we're most excited about in terms of what we're able to do with our kids.
So Code for Charlotte, what we do on the majority of the time of year has to do with projects and working to build either tech solutions or ways to tweak existing solutions to help open up access to government services. On that front, we've done a couple of really cool things. One of them is we created a way for you to get the balance of your food stamps card through text message. And what it does is it tweaks the existing system and uses an API to call in, go through the 25 prompts, listen to the message, transcribe it, and send it back to you. So what that does is it takes an existing system, text messaging, that we found that 95% of the people on food stamps have text messaging, but only 15% have smartphones with data. So creating an app form wasn't the solution, obviously, because then we're creating not for the people who actually need it, right? So it was important to come up with a solution that used the system. And then asking the state if we could have access to that database seemed like that was never going to happen, because that would be frightening. Because it's basically like asking Bank of America to open up your balances for you, which is never going to happen. So we used to tweak an existing system to do things like that. So we've seen a huge amount of impact from that. The really neat impact that we've seen from the laptop drive is we've been going into companies, but that door into the company has been a different member of our organization or somebody that we know or somebody that we're connected to. And having that light bulb go on, they're like, oh, well, I have laptops in my closet. I'm like, yeah, so did I. That's how we started this. And seeing that change and then contacting the companies, and all of a sudden they're like, oh, well, that would be great. Can the company donate too? I'm like, yes, the company can also donate. So being able to reach out to different tech sectors and explain to them how they can donate has been really nice and interesting.
We have a lot of stories of folks in terms of what the impact having a computer in their houses or in their home, and some of the stories are kind of amazing. First time I ever got an email account, first time I ever Skyped somebody, etc. Carrie Del Mariani, our director of programs, is here today, and there was a program we both kind of thought of years ago that we finally got funding for, which is called Tech Trailblazers. And it's probably my favorite program because it takes middle school kids from communities where there aren't as much property tax, so schools don't have quite as many classes and electives. It takes middle school kids from lower socioeconomic backgrounds, and it brings them in for 5 weeks to Kramden. It takes about an hour and a half in the classroom, and over those 5 weeks, they actually learn the very basics of computer hardware and software. So these are kids who have been told their entire life, don't open that computer, don't touch that, don't play with that. And they come to Kramden for an hour and a half in the classroom where they learn about this, and then for the second hour and a half, we take them into the warehouse. And it's kind of like, Mr. Magoo's Magic Emporium of computer stuff. Go ahead, touch it. We have 1,000 more. I don't care. Break it apart. And they learn to recycle. They learn to triage. They learn to install operating system. And after 5 weeks, their kind of capstone program is they build their very own home computer and take it home with them. And that is cool. That to me is, that's a program I wish I could scale to the infinite degree. The bigger program is obviously Kramden Tech Scholars, about 3,000 people a year, and they get a computer directly in their home. That's where you get the stories of, I had to go to my grandpa's house, or I had to go to the library, I can only use 20 minutes worth. And there's no kid right now, heck, even kindergarten now, that if you don't have a computer and your parents don't have access to that, everything is going online in the schools. For cost reasons, for cost-saving reasons, really, for testing, everything is going online. And those kids that don't have computers at home, they're already way behind the 8 ball. Not to mention the kids that don't have connectivity as well. So to us, there's a lot of different ways technology can improve your lives. Obviously, we all know it here. My personal favorite, again, is Tech Trailblazers because it's such a cool program.
From programming events, what stands out to you as an event that you've done at your organization? You could be the biggest or the most memorable, or just something crazy happened, but just an event that you guys did at your organization.
Sure. It was something that I was kind of asked to do. Vance was the first high school that I engaged a group of youth on a program for 4 days of spring break And Vance said, well, Electrolux did it last year. You don't want to do the same thing, building refrigerators, so why don't you do something? And I'm not someone who's engaged teenagers in a classroom level on something they've never done before. Main model came to fruition. Getting teams of students to build a computer iteratively together until they make their own game, and then make the game better, and then learn how to make a website and splice Ethernet cable to learn how the internet works, and they made all of this stuff in to do things. We teach kids to do that and remix each other's code, that it creates a coder culture of their own. So that opened my eyes that how easy that was to do something like that.
Well, there's two experiences that come to mind. First being an experience that I had in particular with a student, actually a homeless student. So we have partnered with the Charlotte Hornets Foundation and Sprint to provide laptops and hotspots to students. And there's this high school senior who we provide his laptop, and he asked me, he says, is this mine or do I have to return it? And I said, no, this is yours. You get to keep this. And it was just that moment that I realized that device means so much more. I could see in his eyes that he knew that, one, someone cared enough about him, and that, two, that he could have ownership. And it was just an incredible experience, and I'm trying not to get too emotional here, but just to be able to see that. The second was in October, where we actually had our largest distribution of about 500 laptops, and we targeted about 5 Title I high schools here in Mecklenburg County. And it was actually the weekend after the riots had happened here in Charlotte, and there was a girl who actually, I believe she was the first person, 8:00 a.m. on a Saturday morning, lining up to get her device. And unfortunately, she actually heard I guess it was some kind of press release, or the news was running a story that we were giving away free laptops, and so just kind of come. And so she was one of those students that came, and we were saddened that we did not have enough devices to be able to support that student. And so I know that we all have heard the importance of, again, getting those devices and what they can do. And every single day, I think about her. I think about that kid that took a few buses to make it uptown to get a device. And that's one person that we missed. And so I'm sure we all have various experiences, but those two in particular really drive our organization and drive me every day.
So this is hard. This is actually harder than I thought it would be. So the Code for Charlotte's laptop drive genesis started last January when I had to move. And that reminded me that I had 4 laptops and a desktop sitting in a closet that I had just tucked away and forgotten about. Not only did that remind me that I had them, but that I am extremely fortunate that I have 4 laptops sitting in a closet that all work. they just were slightly slower than I wanted them to be, or I mentioned something that they didn't do, and my husband went and bought me a new one. So I started thinking about and trying to find places that could take it and would refurbish it, not just grind it down. And then in June, we had a large event. It's called National Day of Civic Hacking. It's always the first weekend of June. We had a guest from the White House, DJ Patel, who's for another 2 weeks. He's the chief executive. He's the chief data scientist for the White House. And he and I were talking about laptops and digital inclusion and open data and how this all fits. And I mentioned my laptop drive. And his face lit up. I'm like, okay, well, maybe this is a thing that maybe we should actually do. So that day we kind of floated it around and came up with a game plan and figured out what are the steps we need to do and where do I need to start going to look for partners who can fill these steps. It was the first time I had said this project out loud to anybody. And that day I had like 20 people come up and they wanted to work on it. So I'm like, okay, well, maybe this is really a thing, that it's not just me who thinks that I should do this. And then the next real conversation I started having with James and stuff about like this, and George with Google Fiber, and Jessica's here, and Jess was so ignited and so excited about the idea about doing this project that it just really, like, that lights my fire. Like, that makes me really want to do it. And so they signed on. They are our sponsor and presenter. So it's their help that helped, make this a reality, besides just a sketch in yet another notebook waiting for somebody to do something.
So we do a lot of events every year, and kind of our signature event's what's called the Geekathon. We produce geeks. No. Refurbish computers. But you get a t-shirt that says geek in the front, so everybody loves it. And we do this with companies, typically. Companies will sponsor it. It's a 3-day event. 2 days, we get about, I don't know, Carrie can correct me, about 250, 200 employees will volunteer and refurbish up to 300 to 400 desktops in those 2 days. And then the third day is we pick a school or a group that the company's interested in working with, and we redistribute those computers. And they're great events, and we do 4 to 5 a year, and they're a lot of work, a lot of logistics. But a few years ago, or actually before I even got to Kramden, they've been doing this, but one of the best events is what Lenovo likes to do. And Lenovo has always been big with veterans and military service folks. And we kind of do Geekathon at Lenovo, so our employees will renovate computers, refurbish them, etc. And then we'll go to a military base. And North Carolina has a lot of bases, in case you didn't know. Fort Bragg, Seymour Johnson, Cherry Point, a lot of military personnel here. And what I never realized until we did this was a lot of military folks I guess it makes sense, but they don't have a lot of resources you think they would have. And a house computer that they're allowed to use is something that a lot of them did not have. They might have a laptop, but that's a Department of Defense laptop. They're not going to allow their kid on there. You're not allowed to touch that thing. So they need a computer for their kids. And I got to say, they're appreciative families I've ever come across. I mean, they just light up when they get the computer. They're so happy to have it. Their kids are thrilled. And those events, and we call them Give-a-thons or military war days. They don't really have a name like Geekathon, which rolls off the tongue, but they're so important. And about 10% of our computers on average go to military families. And I wish we could do more with them, because it is kind of we know what populations are not across the digital divide, right? We know this. Lower socioeconomic background, if you're ESL, if you're a minority, we kind of know the groups, seniors, but we don't think of military folks, right? But that is a big group, and it's one that I wish we could do more every single year.
Okay, last question. What would you like to say or encourage to the digital inclusion community here in this room, and also just out in Charlotte and watching online?
I think that coming together like this is extremely helpful, because you can hear us echoing in different ways, and the impact in one sector might be dominated by somebody sitting a couple of seats down, but it doesn't. This is not like Dell versus HP or Lenovo here. If all of us were hitting all cylinders, we could not connect 1 out of 5 people in probably this one county in 1 year. We would have to coordinate. And I think that's why Digital Charlotte is so important, and efforts like it. I think the other part of this is if we get, like we're in Johnson C. Smith University, I would love where you have smaller colleges or community colleges that are trying to introduce working class people to high growth, high paying jobs. Or you hear about retraining blue collar workers, right? Because the mines aren't going to come back and the steel mills are going to go away. Well, here, as I said before, this is a renewable resource. If you're just about business, then if you want more renewable resources to be in your city, more giving creates more opportunity for these nonprofits to create the training in the pipeline. It also creates technology that can be done that's relevant. You don't have to have driverless cars and drones and, you know, landing rockets backwards in the middle of the ocean. Getting your family connected and doing that could be your job, and that's innovation right there. And getting these local institutions of higher learning to be on board, I think would be something that we could have a shared voice in, because we need more people growing up, getting degrees in tech, who know exactly what it's like to live without it and not be in a silicon bubble, which oftentimes happens. And that's how you get 60 million people offline, and yet, you know, you have multi-billion-dollar, you know, unicorns out there not doing anything about it. So those are my 2 cents.
Oh, I think I'm going to end on 2 questions. So, by a show of hands, who has a cell phone? The second question is, by a show of hands, has there ever been a time that you've forgotten your cell phone or misplaced your cell phone? Now, do you know that feeling that you get when it's gone, when you can't make the phone call that you need to make, or you can't, you know, GPS the directions that need to be made? There are so many students that have that same feeling every single day in the classroom. And so I would say, we would say at E2D that technology truly is a great equalizer, and that making sure that we close this divide, it ensures that that for one, our economy is going to grow stronger. 2, it's a breeding ground for innovation. And 3, it provides a sense of self-worth. And so I encourage everyone to engage with some of the organizations that you've heard about today, and find out how you can lend your services, whether it's your skills, whether it's your devices, whether it's your connections, because for this to be achieved, for us to end this divide, it's going to be a team effort.
So I totally should have sat on the first spot. So it's very much echoing everything that both Will and James have said. It's all about community, and there's lots of work to be done. There's no way the 4 of us, or the, you know, probably, I would say at least 8 organizations that we all work with, can't any real solution. But what we can do is, if you've got something sitting in your closet waiting, you can provide a solution for 1 family. That's 1 more family. The 4 that were sitting in my closet, I provided a solution and connectivity for 4 families. Like, that's amazing. It's so easy that to just chip away at this divide. I feel like a lot of the time we sit around and we wait for these giant solutions, that nobody wants to do anything until you can solve a problem for 500 families. And in that time frame, there are families sitting there that need our help. But we could do these small things and chip away at it and work together to make a difference. And even 10 families is a huge success, let alone 500 families or 600 families. Like, I think all numbers of them are super important.
I'm not good at giving pep talks. I'll just say this. I'm a big believer in public shaming, and the fact that there are Fortune 500 companies out there who are not giving out computers, all their refresh stuff, instead it's going to for-profit recyclers who are then shredding it or reselling it. That to me is a huge shame. That's awful. Those computers and those devices have a second extended life, and we're not talking one or two. We're talking 1 to 10,000, 20,000 computers. Those companies need to look at themselves and say, you know what? We can make an impact. We can make a huge impact. I mean, can you imagine if each of us here got 10, 20,000 computers that we can refurbish and put out in the community? You're not talking about crossing digital divide. You're talking about making a nice big bridge over it, making it really sturdy and worthwhile and something that's going to have an impact. So that's my message. Again, I'm not a pep guy, but take a look at yourself. If you know somebody who works in one of these Fortune 500 companies and you ask them, what are you guys doing computers? Some truck comes and picks it up. Well, if that truck doesn't have a nonprofit's name on the side of it and they're not going back in the community, give them the stink eye.
Great. Can we get a round of applause for our guests? Thank you for coming out. Thank you for taking some time to talk with us. Thank you again to Johnson C. Smith University for hosting us. Yes, please. And to everyone that's watching on their devices, thank you for tuning in. I have some minor announcement that I wanted to alert everyone about. Our next meetup will be in March, and it will be the Best Minds Conference hosted by the Queen's Night School of Communication. We're very excited. The topic and location and date is still to be determined or announced. Yes, to be announced. In addition to that, for everyone that's sitting up here, they represent an organization. And if you give me 1 second. We want you to be social with them. So right up front is a slide that just has all of their social media handles and networks and just ways to connect. So if you have your phone out, take a picture, or if you're ready to go, start just following them right now. The slide will actually be up, so you don't need to rush or anything. And if you have any digital inclusion resources, or if you need any digital inclusion resources for yourself or your community, please contact us at Digital Charlotte. Our website is digitalcharlotte.org. Our Twitter is at digclt, and our Facebook is /digitalcharlotte. On our website, digitalcharlotte.org, we also have an events calendar, a newsletter, as well as volunteer resources as well. So please just, if you have any need, feel free to contact us. And thank you again for coming out to our meetup, and see you next time. I have no idea how to end that with an online audience. All right, thank you.